The year is 1550. We are in Istanbul, the city that was once Constantinople, the dazzling capital of the Ottoman Empire at the absolute summit of its power. This single empire straddles 3 continents at once, ruling lands in Europe, Asia, and Africa, commanding the great trade routes between East and West, and holding the holy cities of Islam under its protection. Its armies are the most feared on earth. Its navy rules the Mediterranean. And at the very center of this vast empire sits one man in a palace of silence whose smallest gesture can move armies and end lives. That man is you. You are the Sultan, Padishah, Caliph of Islam. To your subjects, you are nothing less than the shadow of God upon the earth. You are not merely the richest and most powerful person in this world. In the eyes of millions, you are the axis on which the world itself turns. Using advanced AI trained on the surviving chambers of Topkapi Palace, the Imperial Ottoman archives, the accounts of foreign ambassadors who stood trembling in your court, and the chronicles of the empire itself, we have reconstructed a single day in the life of an Ottoman Sultan at the height of his glory. Step through the gates of Topkapi, but abandon everything you think you know about palaces of power, because here, the most extraordinary secret is this: the most powerful men in your entire empire are your slaves, and you rule the world almost without ever speaking a word. In Rome, the ultimate luxury was silence from the chaos of the streets. Here, silence is something far stranger and far greater. It is the silence of absolute majesty. You are so exalted, so far above other men, that you do not shout your commands or argue or debate. Your court moves around you in near total stillness. Thousands of attendants glide through the palace without a sound. And the men who rule your empire in your name, your generals, your governors, even your Grand Vizier, owe you not the loyalty of noble blood, but the absolute devotion of men who were once nothing and whom you raised to greatness. Your power does not need to be loud. It is the quietest and the most total on earth. You wake in the heart of Topkapi Palace. But Topkapi is not a single grand building like the palaces of Europe. It is a series of courtyards nested one inside another, each more private, more guarded, and more sacred than the last. The outer courts belong to the business of the empire, open to officials and petitioners. But as you move inward, the world falls silent, the crowds vanish, and you pass into the inner sanctum where only the most trusted may follow. The chambers are breathtaking, walls sheathed in shimmering blue and turquoise tiles, ceilings gilded and painted, fountains murmuring in cool marble courtyards, gardens fragrant with roses and tulips. And everywhere, the silence. So profound is the law of stillness in your presence that a special corps of mute attendants serves in the innermost rooms, communicating in a refined sign language, so that not even an accidental word may disturb the serenity of the shadow of God. You are dressed by silent pages in robes of staggering magnificence. Caftans of heavy silk and shimmering cloth of gold, woven in the imperial workshops with patterns of tulips, carnations, and pomegranates, layered one over another, lined with the finest sable and fox fur. Upon your head rises an enormous turban of fine white cloth, pinned with a jeweled aigrette that holds a spray of heron feathers and set with emeralds and rubies the size of eggs. At your waist hangs a dagger whose hilt blazes with gemstones. Every thread, every jewel is a statement that no man on earth stands above you. By mid-morning, the business of empire begins, and here you witness the most remarkable machinery of power ever devised. Your imperial council, the Divan, gathers in a domed chamber to govern the empire, led by your Grand Vizier, the second most powerful man in your domain, who wields authority over armies, provinces, and the treasury. And here is the astonishing truth: your Grand Vizier is your slave. So are your generals. So are most of the great men who administer your empire. For the Ottomans built their ruling class through a system unlike anything in Europe. Promising Christian boys from the conquered Balkan provinces were taken from their villages, converted to Islam, and trained with rigorous discipline in the palace schools. The strongest became the Janissaries, your elite slave soldiers, the most fearsome infantry in the world. The most brilliant rose through the ranks of administration until the very cleverest might become Grand Vizier himself. A boy born in a mud village in the mountains could rise to govern an empire precisely because he was your creature, owing everything to you and nothing to any noble family. Where other realms feared the ambition of their nobles, you surrounded yourself with brilliant slaves whose loyalty was absolute because you alone made them,
and you alone could unmake them.
And while the council debates, you are not necessarily in the room. Above the council chamber sits a small window, screened by a golden grille, opening from your private quarters. From behind it, unseen, you may watch and listen to everything. Your viziers never know whether the Sultan's eye is upon them or not. They must always assume that you are watching. It is ruled by invisible, omnipresent presence, the silent, ever-watching shadow of God. The wealth that flows toward you is almost beyond reckoning. Tribute and taxes pour in from 3 continents, from the wheat fields of Egypt, the silver of the Balkans, the spice routes of the East, the great cities of the Levant and North Africa. Your treasury overflows with gold, silver, gemstones, and treasures from every corner of the known world. But you are more than an emperor. As Caliph, you are the supreme leader of Sunni Islam, the protector of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, the guardian of the sacred pilgrimage. Within Topkapi, you keep the holiest relics of the faith, treasured beyond all gold, and your religious authority over millions of believers is as vast as your political power. You hold both the sword and the faith in a single hand. And now we come to the most misunderstood place in your entire palace, the harem. Forget the fantasies. The harem is not merely a place of pleasure, it is the private, sacred household of the dynasty, and it is one of the true centers of power in the empire. It is a self-contained world of hundreds of women, guarded and administered by eunuchs, with its own rigid hierarchy, its own schools, its own fierce internal politics. And at its summit reigns not a wife, but your mother, the Valide Sultan, the most powerful woman in the empire, who may advise on matters of state, manage vast wealth, and shape the succession itself. The women of the harem are educated, cultured, and politically shrewd, and the mother of a future sultan can become a kingmaker. Far from a mere pleasure garden, the harem is the dynastic engine room of the empire, where the future of the throne is quietly decided. But with the throne comes a shadow of terrible darkness. The Ottoman succession knows no gentle rules of inheritance. When a sultan dies, his sons may have to fight for the throne, and to prevent the civil wars that such struggles unleashed, a brutal custom arose. A new sultan could lawfully order the execution of his own brothers to secure the unity of the empire. In later years, this gave way to a different cruelty. Princes kept locked away in confinement within the palace for their entire lives, alive but caged, lest they threaten the throne. The same dynasty that produces the shadow of God on earth also devours its own. Power here is not only glory, it is blood. In the afternoon, you may go out, and on these rare occasions, the empire holds its breath. For the sultan is seldom seen by his people. On Fridays, you process in magnificent state to the mosque for prayers, surrounded by ranks of Janissaries and officials in dazzling array, the crowds straining for a glimpse of the ruler they almost never behold. Or you glide along the Bosphorus in a slender imperial barge, rowed by dozens of oarsmen, the great strait sparkling between 2 continents. Or you ride out to hunt in the vast imperial forests, an army of attendants in your train. Wherever you go, the world parts before you in silence and awe. As evening falls, we come to the imperial table, and even here the Ottoman court defies every other elite on earth. The imperial kitchens of Topkapi are a marvel, a sprawling complex of domed buildings where armies of cooks prepare meals not only for you, but for thousands of palace residents and guests every single day. Yet you, the Sultan, often dine alone, in dignified seclusion, served by silent pages who taste each dish first, for the fear of poison shadows every powerful man. Where the Romans roared and feasted in raucous abundance, you eat in serene, ceremonial quiet. The food is exquisite: tender lamb and fowl, fragrant rice, stuffed vegetables, rich stews, perfumed with spices that flow to you along the trade routes you control. And then the sherbets, sweet iced drinks of fruit and flower essences, cooled with snow and ice brought down from distant mountains and rushed to the palace. A staggering display of logistics to chill a drink in the summer heat. There are honeyed pastries, candied fruits, and the new, dark, bitter drink beginning to conquer the empire. Coffee, sipped slowly in quiet contemplation. Your dominance is proven not by gluttony or noise, but by refinement, abundance, and the perfect, awesome stillness of a court that revolves around your every breath. Late at night, the palace sleeps, and you sit alone among the glowing tiles and murmuring fountains, the lights of 2 continents flickering across the dark water beyond your windows. You command an empire of millions, hold the faith of the Muslim world in your hands, and rule it all from a palace of silence. And yet even the shadow of God on earth cannot escape the final reckoning. When a sultan dies, his death may be kept secret for days, hidden until the chosen heir can be brought safely to the throne and the dangerous moment of succession survived. Then comes the funeral, solemn and magnificent. But your true and eternal monument is something greater than any tomb. The mightiest sultans pour their fortunes into building colossal mosque complexes, breathtaking domed mosques designed by master architects, surrounded by schools, hospitals, soup kitchens that feed the poor, libraries, and fountains. These are not merely monuments to your vanity. They are gifts to God and to your people, charitable foundations that will serve the living for centuries to come. And at the heart of the complex stands your tomb, a domed mausoleum where you will lie in honor. Where the Roman bought a roadside monument and the tycoon bought a library to launder his name, you build a house of God that towers over the city, so that for as long as the empire endures, the faithful will gather beneath your dome, the poor will eat from your kitchens, and your name will be spoken in prayer. Your immortality is woven into the skyline itself and into the worship of millions. That was the life of an Ottoman sultan in 1550. A life of absolute power expressed through perfect silence, ruling the largest and most magnificent empire of the age from a palace where the mightiest men were slaves and the holiest relics of a faith lay guarded behind golden doors. He held the sword and the faith, the worldly and the divine, in a single hand and bound an empire of 3 continents together through awe, brilliance, and ruthless calculation. The empire eventually declined, and the long age of the sultans came at last to an end. But the great domes still rise over Istanbul, the tiles still shimmer in the silent halls of Topkapi, and the call to prayer still echoes from the mosques that the sultans built, the eternal monument to the men who once ruled the world from behind a veil of silence. History remembers emperors who shouted their power across the world. But the Sultan proved that the greatest power of all could be wielded almost without a word. This video is brought to you by the Paladin Learn History app. Scan the QR code to